Hey everyone. So once again, I'm David Phillipson from Alchemy. Thought we'd start with some quick intros. So I'm David Phillipson. I'm here with
Hey, Omar, say hi.
Hey, another David from Alchemy.
Yeah. Could we just get a sense of who's in the room and what you are interested in hearing about at this workshop? Let's go around. I'll start with Justin.
Yeah, so I work for CoinList I work on the business operations team there, and I'm helping run this hackathon. And so yeah, happy to be here and host this workshop.
Great. Amir? I don't know, anyone who wants to introduce themselves, speak up, can always jump in later.
I'm Mark. I work with Alice. We're a mobile application that allows developers and businesses to build native mobile apps inside of our wallet. We're interested in Alchemy because there's no real good API out there for just a one-stop shop for getting everything you need to know about the blockchain. It's like there's a graph, there's Etherscan, but it's still horrible. So I just want to see what you guys have.
Yeah, so to tell you a bit about what we're trying to do with Alchemy here, Alchemy is trying to be the best possible experience when developing against blockchain in terms of providing the best infrastructures and APIs to make your experience as simple as possible. So we know that there are a lot of pain points when developing your own distributed apps. One piece of that is getting information off of the blockchain by reading events has some challenges that come with it. We wanted to demonstrate how we can provide easy-to-use APIs by partnering with Cheeze wizards here. We thought we saw some opportunities to show how working together with other dApp developers, we can produce APIs that are very easy for people to build off of, very easy to quickly see the relevant pieces of information, and basically make an effort to simplify the process as much as possible. So one of the things that we would love to hear from any of you as feedback is what kind of things you would expect to find when working with an API in one of these apps. Whether you've tried to do this sort of thing before by reading directly from the blockchain, and if so, what your experiences have been like. And then we can tell you a bit about the sorts of the means of building this sort of thing, our other products, the infrastructure that enables this, anything that could be useful in that sense. Yeah. Let's see here. So you all may have seen the Cheeze Wizards API already. Let me send a link to that. Let's see, do you want the outside? Yeah, it should be. Cheeze Wizards API, excellent. Let's see. All right, so I just sent to chat a link to the sorts of APIs that can. Wait, is that right?
Oh, /docs.
Oops. Let me fix that. Okay, much better. Okay, yeah, so all of the information that's in this API here has been read out of log events that are on the blockchain. So the good people at Cheeze Wizards have written smart contracts that emit events in any kind of state change chain. To produce an API like this, what you want to do is look at all those events, watch for any new ones, and then update a state that you can serve out quickly. This is a lot faster than trying to calculate any of this information on demand. So for example, if you wanted to know the current power of a wizard and you hadn't pre-computed it, what you would need to do is look through all of the events to find any events that could lead to that wizard changing power, and then basically trace through their history to find out what their current power is. So in order to produce this API, we've done that sort of work for you. There's a couple of technical considerations that come up when you attempt to do something like this, and I expect that these are fairly common challenges that any kind of dApp developer might face when working with data in their app. One thing that you have to be careful with is dealing with reorgs. So anytime you have blocks on the chain that get replaced by a different branch, you have to make sure that you correctly handle taking out those events. So the simplest possible way to do this, which is what we do for the Cheeze Wizards API, is to only accept events once they have a certain number of confirmations. It seems straightforward, but there's a little bit of challenge that can get into us. I will go into that in a moment. The other piece that you have to deal with when handling any kind of this sort of streaming data API is how to handle when your script to collect the data starts up. So the challenge that you run into is that when you start up the script, you need to grab all of the events leading up to now. On the very first run, you need all of the events up until now. If you deploy a later version of the script, you then need to retrieve events between the time you stopped the last script and the new one. And then after you've downloaded all the past events, you need to seamlessly start dealing with the future events, which may have been coming in as you were handling the previous ones. So let's lay some groundwork here, the things that you would have to deal with for this. We are taking advantage of the Ethereum subscribe API. So we are using ETH subscribe is the method call. I'll send out a link to that. So. Yeah, so what that API allows you to do is you can set up a WebSocket connection to a server, such as Alchemy, and then it will let you know anytime new events come in. So two things about these events. One of them is that the way that they handle reorgs can be a little quirky. What they do is in the case that there's a reorganization, any events that were on the lost part of the chain get sent again but are now marked as removed. So you have to make sure you handle those correctly. Let's see. There's also quite a bit of effort that goes into dealing with just WebSocket oddities that you would have to deal with any kind of subscription-based system. A lot of these issues are very similar to what I just described. This whole idea of backfilling data and then seamlessly transitioning into handling the new data. It's something that you deal with almost any WebSocket, and it's something that you deal with here for these streaming events. If you think about it, it might sound simple to do this thing of start with a backfill and then start handling events from then on. But it's actually not quite the easiest thing. It's easy to get wrong if you're not careful. So let's talk through the steps you would have to do in order to perform this backfill transition to streaming data sort of thing. All right, so things that we have to do. We have to make a call to load all the backfill data. We also have to start up a subscription and listen to new events. And so the first question is, what order do you do those two things in? Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, we have another friend here. This is Mike Garland from another one of our coworkers here.
How's it going, man?
Yeah, Mike did a lot of work to organize this workshop. Thank you very much, Mike.
Of course.
Yeah, I think he'll be joining in just a moment. Yeah, but, so talk some more about how to handle streaming data on the blockchain. As I was saying, so we have these two steps: backfill the previous data and start listening to new data and handle that too. So the question is, what order do you do these two things in? In other words, at what point do you start listening for the new data? So the first thing you might try is say, well, I'll do that in order. I'll backfill the old data, and then when that's done, I'll start listening to new data. The issue with that is that in the time that you are backfilling the old data, new data will be coming in. So if you do it in that order, you'll miss the new data and you have a gap. So then what you could try instead is to say, okay, I'll start backfilling the old data and listening for new data at the same time. So now you're receiving the new data on this stream at the same time you're doing the backfilling. So you have this new data, but you don't want to handle it just yet. That means you have to stow it away somewhere, like stash it in a buffer so that you can handle it all once your backfill is complete. And then the last thing to take into consideration here is, well, okay, so that suggests that the general principle of what we'll do is we will start listening for new events, but we will not handle them just yet. Instead, we will stash them away in a buffer. While we're doing that, we make a call to load the backfill data and handle all of that. Once that is done, we take everything that's in our buffer and handle that. And after that, we start handling the new events just fine. So this is the basic principle of what we do. It's what we did to implement this API. It's what we do whenever we listen to WebSockets. There's one last quirk, which is that you have to worry about duplicated events. It's possible that if I start listening to events and then do the backfill, I might hear an event both when I'm listening for the ongoing events and in the backfill to retrieve it. So I need to add a step to make sure that I'm not handling any event more than once. You could get duplicated data there. As long as I'm careful, that shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, and just watch out if you're in a multi-threaded language that you don't run into race conditions as you do all this. So all that sounds like it's somewhat complicated. I mean, I'm sure any of you would be able to handle that if you put some time into it. It's just something that requires some care. To help you out with that, we did write some helper tools to implement this sort of logic for WebSockets. We have a package called Alchemy Web3. And I'm going to link you to that in the chat. Let's see. Yeah, so this is a, I'm guessing you're all familiar with Web3. It's a library that appears in multiple different languages for interacting with the Ethereum blockchain. We wrote ourselves a wrapper around Web3 JS, so a JavaScript library that will handle all of this WebSocket logic for you. If you're doing work with WebSockets and JavaScript, I'd strongly suggest you take a look at that. It might save you some headaches along the way. Yeah, so that is my little speech about handling streaming data on the blockchain. Let me see. Do you want to talk about something, Mike? Or do you have something?
Nothing in particular. Yeah, I think the most important thing here is being able to answer some questions about APIs, infrastructure, users API in particular. So yeah, would open it to the floor.
What was that? It was like very echoey. So I missed what you said. Can you repeat your question, Mike?
No specific question. Basically, just we're happy to answer any questions around blockchain infrastructure, using APIs effectively, Cheeze Wizard's API in particular. Yeah, so for us, main goal here is just to help people get the answers they need. So yeah, if you guys have questions, things you'd like to talk through, we're happy to help.
Cool. Well, my first question for Alchemy would be what, I'll go into Cheeze Wizards, but do you guys have blockchain data for like tokens and token prices?
Looks like you may have been muted. Do you have a question, Mark?
Yeah, the question was, do you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
Okay, 1 second.
Oh, we got you back.
Mark, I think you're muted now. Try speaking now.
Yeah, works?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, the question was if Alchemy has an endpoint for like tokens, token images, and token price data.
Yeah, any kind of token you care about in particular, like ERC20s, 721s, all of the above?
All of the above.
Cool. Yeah, good question. So we've built out a bunch of APIs surrounding ERC20 tokens. we work with a lot of decentralized exchanges, wallets. People were kind of primarily concerned with those tokens. And so have built out a number of APIs specifically related to those around like fetching balances more quickly and easily, getting allowances, things like that. As part of that, we do, I believe, and one of the engineers, correct me if I'm wrong, we make available token icons. So yeah, you'd be able to grab the image for any ERC20 icon. We don't currently have that for ERC721s, but kind of like core ethos for Palantir and building out, or sorry, Alchemy and building out these additional APIs is being able to deliver value wherever it's kind of most high leverage for our customers. And so, turns out that ERC20 was one of those things where there was like a lot that we could do to make the process of grabbing these things easier for a big set of developers in the ecosystem. So certainly open to doing the same kind of thing for 721s if it's valuable.
Hmm.
Do you have a particular use case in mind, Mark? Like, is there a pain point you've hit with like fetching icons or 721 token images?
Yeah, 721s is fine because we use OpenSea, but for fetching tokens, it's still a nightmare. Like, there's just no. When I'm fetching tokens, I fetch the tokens from one API, and then I go and fetch the token images from another API, and then go and fetch the token prices from another API. So it's just like, why am I making so much calls? I was gonna, you always think like build it yourself, but there's just too much on your plate to do it. And then when I saw Alchemy, I was like, this could be what I need for my app. My app's a wallet. Plus, it's also like a wallet that people build inside of too. So we need a really robust API for developers.
That's cool. What do you mean by people build inside it?
I'll show you just like what it looks like. So it's like a mobile app.
Awesome.
It's a wallet. Like you got all your tokens here and like your NFTs, but then like these mini apps are like built in React Native by third-party developers. So you can like, for example, I'm just building out like a Cheeze Wizards one for the hackathon, and then these other applications can build out their apps inside of it, kind of thing.
Is it
these
also
apps like thanks. But these apps need I need token like really nice data for it.
I see. Out of curiosity, what third-party tools are you using right now, and which ones of them kind of like work well for you? It sounds like there's at least 3 that you're using to grab all the different sets of information for ERC20s.
Yeah, CoinMarketCap for the price, ETH Plora for the token data, and for the token images, like that Trust Wallet's open token image API thing.
Got it. It sounds like for the most part, like each service is working okay. It's just the fact that you have to manage 3 different services and patch it all together is kind of unnecessary and then a little frustrating.
Yeah, and like I'm waiting on other APIs to do it. They say, oh, it's coming, but I was just wondering if you guys had it. And then also Etherscan for transactions. Do you guys do transactions as well, like listening out for transactions?
What information about transactions? We can definitely serve a bunch of stuff around transactions.
Like if I send a transaction and get the pending state.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So that's something we see as pretty critically important. Like particularly when you're driving towards better UX from blockchain applications, like being able to track the state of transactions through the life cycle is super, super important. And so if you basically have to send off a transaction and then wait however long it takes to get mined, that's a lot of kind of like ambiguous time for any application, particularly a wallet like yours where you've got end users who I'm sure are very anxious to get the like confirmed state of their activity. So yeah, we see it as kind of like one of the more fundamental parts of node infrastructure is being able to support that like mempool activity, right? Like being able to see pending transactions and then track them through kind of like their life cycle from pending to broadcast and mined to eventually confirmed, right? It's a relatively difficult thing to do because as soon as you're going towards like a highly available system, and you're trying to like manage a mempool in a way that's kind of like fault tolerant and reliable, it gets pretty hard. But yeah, it's something we put a ton of effort into because we think it's really important.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Is it? Do you guys have? Is there a way I can access the API?
So we have a wait list right now, but and we've been meaning to send out an email to Cheeze Wizards developers because we want to do something special for you guys and kind of help you skip the wait list. So there's an email coming about that either today or likely early next week. But let me, I can shoot you my email maybe if you talk to me directly. We can make sure to take care of you.
That'd be amazing.
Awesome. Cool. I don't know. Did we all do introductions before I got into the room? Do we know who's on the call generally? Cool.
We know at least one person who's on the call.
Cool. So it looks like there are at least 3 other people I don't know. So Mark, been super nice talking to you. Justin, Short, and Bertrand, you mind introducing yourselves?
Yeah, I work at CoinList. I'm on the business operations team there, and I'm helping run the hackathon. And I'm actually Short as well. I use 2 devices to make sure that the feedback isn't too bad for this.
That's awesome. That takes 2 of the introductions out of the way.
Is there anyone else on the call that's building something and has a question for Alchemy about their API?
Yeah, sorry, just realized I was muted. Masanori, Max, Janet, anybody else on the call would love to hear kind of like what you're up to, what you're building, how we can help. Cool. I guess another topic that might be interesting, just to seed a little discussion here, is so in particular in the Cheeze Wizards context. So we're building out APIs for developers to build on, particularly as part of this hackathon. I want to make sure that people are like really well provided for. If people have thought through kind of like what they're planning on building for the hackathon, if there's any way that the API could help support that, would be super interested to talk through those kinds of problems as well.
So I'll just wait a little bit for if anyone wants to speak up, but
Mark, if you have a question, I think that you should just go for it.
yeah. Yeah, it'd be cool to like get you guys support on this. So I'm building out basically a mobile game controller for Cheeze Wizards. So because you can listen out for blockchain events, what I'm going to do is just use the same private key that I have in my MetaMask and put it in my phone, and then use that private key to like sign and send events. And then like because the blockchain is listening out for events and the game is also listening out for events, when I send off all of my I'll show you what it looks like. So like I go into the app, Cheeze Wizards, and then like I click on the actions, and then I don't know how much actions you can choose, like 3 or 5, whatever. And then I tap on that button, and then it eventually like sends off the event. So I guess it'll be it'll then send off the event, but my hope is that the game will also be listening out for the same events just on the blockchain, and you won't have to do like any authorization or API keys, or have any API keys. And then it would when it hears the event, it'll then render the animation for the game, like the duel to start.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you're building out basically like a full mobile client for Cheeze Wizards.
No, I just want it to be like a game controller so that you can like press it and or you can kind of like take it with you wherever, because I think like maybe being limited on the desktop alone is kind of like if you really want to win this thing, you kind of want to have it with you wherever you go. So I just want to make like a really like small MVP mobile client so that you can have the best shot at winning / like enhance your experience while you're in front of your desktop kind of thing.
That makes tons of sense. Yeah, it looks super slick, by the way. That's it looks like an awesome application.
Excellent.
Yeah, so are you using the API right now to like input any of the Wizards data for that? Or yeah, how can we help? Is there anything that would be kind of high leverage for you?
Yeah, this like so I literally started reading. I didn't read much into the whole smart contracts and how all the game logic works essentially, but I would be needing to be able to get like wizard IDs and wizard images, like because I'm having trouble rendering SVGs. It'd be nice to get like the proper Cheeze Wizards images, but I don't know like if you guys handle that with Cheeze Wizards or not.
Yeah, it's certainly something we could look into. What are you using for images right now?
I just copy the SVGs off of the internet and then like convert them to PNGs. Cool. But yeah. Yeah, I will need to listen out for events. I will need like based on the game, which is awesome. Like what you guys have done is like amazing work. Yeah, just to get everything going. 1 second.
Awesome. Are you in the Telegram, by the way, the Alchemy Cheeze Wizards support group?
No, can you send that link?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because like even after this call, we're happy to talk through, like how to best use the API, how to get the most out of it. So as you're building it out, definitely stay chatty. Let's see. Should send this to everybody. Actually, don't use Zoom very much. Is there a way to all chat?
Is there a way to?
Yeah, Mike, there should be a way to drop a link to everyone that's in here right now. If not, you can just message it to me directly and I'll drop it in the chat.
I got it. Thanks. Cool. Sweet. Yeah, I think so. Obviously, going to be able to get people kind of like higher throughput support on workshops like this. But always if you have questions, want to know some best practices, you're building out stuff on top of the API, that Telegram group is the place.
Cool. Thanks.
Sweet. Yeah. Anybody else have anything they'd like to talk through? Any questions? We can go through some kind of like thoughts about Alchemy, kind of like the things that we thought through when approaching building out like the core infrastructure, if that's interesting for people. But I think like I said, primary thing we want to do is be able to help people with their kind of like primary questions and concerns. Cool. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Alchemy so you guys have a little bit of background on us outside of just the work we're doing with Cheeze Wizards. So Cheeze Wizards kind of like one of the latest things we've done. Super excited to be working with them to power the developer API. Where we're coming from though is like our core product is Ethereum node infrastructure, APIs around that, and then super importantly developer tooling. So kind of like the core thesis of what we built out is that developers on Ethereum and blockchain more broadly are pretty poorly supported. Like if you're coming from the web dev world or the mobile development world, like the tooling around blockchain development in particular is pretty rough. And like, our own take is that for blockchain to be successful, you obviously need to have user adoption, but kind of like the primary step in getting user adoption is getting developer adoption. So kind of like the first thing to solve is that developer experience. And we were actually building out our own blockchain-based application before working on this. It was kind of like quantitative data analytics for large institutions trading cryptocurrencies. And basically found out through our own experience building that this infrastructure piece was kind of like an order of magnitude harder than most of the problems in the blockchain space. It took us a ton of developer time to build out, and really, really talented developers, right? It's a non-trivial issue, and if I'm not sure how many people on this call have run nodes themselves, tried to like scale out that infrastructure. It's a big headache. Like the amount of time you have to spend massaging nodes to actually work and do the things that you want them to is a little bit discouraging sometimes. And so our thought was, we built that infrastructure in the service of this data analytics platform that we had built out. And I think like 8-9 months ago at this point, realized that it was kind of generalizable enough that it would be valuable to anybody building on top of blockchain. Focused on Ethereum because it's where the healthiest developer community is, right? Like our goal was to get reach to a ton of developers building kind of like big, interesting things. And so focused on supporting the Ethereum ecosystem. But yeah, since then, have basically been bringing that to as many projects as we can. And I think the core realization, and I think an important thing for any Ethereum developer to recognize is there's kind of this like catch-22 in the Ethereum world where you basically have to run more than one node because if a node crashes, you have like 3 weeks of sync time if you're using a full node or an archive node. And if you're running an application with users, that's downtime that's generally not going to be pretty well accepted by the people that you're working with. But as soon as you scale beyond a single node to have some kind of like reliability guarantees or some sense of high availability, you run into all these kind of like idiosyncrasies of node infrastructure. Since each node has its own view of the chain, and so as you're trying to like feed data into an application from multiple nodes, you're getting kind of like an inconsistent view of the world all the time. And so something we had to put a lot of thought into in building out Alchemy, this kind of like broader developer services. How do you achieve high availability, like get the reliability you need to run an actual application, but still have data be consistent, correct, and returned quickly, and have to be like a nice interactable platform, right? So yeah, happy to go. Like, if this is interesting to people, happy to talk through like kind of our thoughts on that. I think it's a big kind of very explorable problem, but one of kind of like the really interesting technical challenges we've had to grapple with as we built out this infrastructure. Otherwise, yeah, can keep talking about Alchemy specific stuff about best practices that we found. I don't know. Do people have like? It would actually be helpful to know like how many people here do Ethereum development or blockchain development besides just the context of like Cheeze Wizards and the Cheeze Wizards Hackathon. So it seems like for sure, Mark, you're doing a bunch of stuff. Is there anybody else who's actually like out there building Ethereum applications full-time or part-time? All right, Max, we got somebody over text. Do you have a microphone, Max, or just chat maybe? If you can hear me, Max, really cool that you're doing some stuff on Plasma. Actually, I haven't encountered very many people at all who are using Plasma to actually build things quite yet. What kind of tools are you building on it? Nice. Cheeze Wizards related game or totally independent of the Cheeze Wizards ecosystem? Also, I know this is going to be recorded and sent to people. I'm not sure if the chat is part of that. So for anybody who's watching this in the future, if you can't see the chat, it seems like Max doesn't have a microphone and is writing in over the all chat.
Guys, can you hear me?
Hey, Max. Yeah.
Yay. Yeah, I'm just like not used to Zoom from my mobile phone, but it seems like now I can actually speak.
Nice.
So
how'd you get it working?
Yeah, I'm doing this like RPG game on like using Plasma, and it's a Lip network. They using YouTube, so it's quite an experience building Ethereum contracts on their network. Totally have some challenges doing this, but interesting and like cool. So like what I'm also doing with Cheeze Wizards, I had this idea that I can grab ERC 721 and basically use every wizard to generate different items and also like alter gameplay. So for example, inside of my game, like every player has their own deck of cards. It's sort of like, like classic 52 card, and like wizard, you like alter some of these cards. So for example, there are several cards inside of your deck that are responsible for attack, and there are some cards that are responsible for defense, and like there are some spells and stuff like this.
Nice.
And I think that I could grab some of this. Yes.
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. So where did the sound break on like what I was saying? yeah, so I want to grab like some of this Cheeze Wizard data and introduce it inside of the game, kind of integrate it like those two.
Interesting. So basically like take Cheeze Wizards and then like create card versions of them in your own game.
Yeah, sort of like this.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So sounds like this would be a pretty natural fit for the Alchemy Cheeze Wizards API. Like you want to grab information about wizards. Like do you care about like affinity, power, like all of the properties of wizards?
Yeah, and also I suppose like all their like face item and all these heads and wands, and like this could be also used for like to generate some kind of seed to affect your deck.
Yep. That's quite cool. And so I'd imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, Max, but it seems like in that model, like a player on your game would have card versions of whatever Cheeze Wizards they own. Is that right?
Yeah, sort of.
Interested to hear what it's actually like. Is it a little bit different from that?
Yeah, I'm just like trying to think like if this is a correct statement or not, but yeah, like so, for example, you have like 10 wizards inside of your wallet, right? Every one of them is just like a token. So you can grab like each one of them and generate like 10 different characters inside of like my game. And every one of those characters is gonna have their own unique deck of cards. And then you will be able to use, I don't know, like game experience or stuff like this to evolve this deck of cards like further. Because basically your deck of cards is also a ERC 721 token with some like additional layer on Plasma. And you can like upgrade it, like, I don't know, do different stuff with it. So yeah.
That's quite cool.
And then, no.
Sorry to cut you off. Do the properties of cards in your mind kind of like develop over time? Like if a Cheeze Wizard is out there winning battles and gaining more power, like does the card become more powerful in your game too, or does it kind of stay as a static resource?
I think it's like quite possible to do it that way. Maybe like I can introduce some kind of a shop or like some kind of like location inside of the game where you can like update your deck again, so you just like read like current state of your power and then like somehow affects the game.
Yeah, but sure.
It's totally optional.
Got it. Yeah, for what it's worth, this is actually one of kind of like the more important parts of the API that we built out. Like what we think is actually really, really helpful for developers is that when you're trying to like look for those changes on the chain, it could actually be a pretty resource intensive process. Like we internally call it a block watcher, but the use case is basically like you have some set of assets that you care about, and anytime there's changes on those assets, you want to update the state of your game, make sure that things are kind of being reflected appropriately. So this is something you end up caring about. I think it's something that we've put a lot of thought into handling with the API. So I think it might be a pretty good fit. How is that process going so far, Max? Have you actually started the Cheeze Wizards part, that integration within the game?
Not yet. Like just today, I was managed to do minting on Plasma because again, it's quite tricky process.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now I was thinking, so how can I grab all these Cheeze Wizards like tokens data and how I can like bring them in, and was also thinking that how can user prove that they're actually own the wizard. So I would need to make like some kind of a bridge, or I don't know. So still like lots of how do you call it, like questions in my head of like how to implement it properly.
Yep. Yeah, it's super cool though. I think, from having talked with the Cheeze Wizards core developer team a lot, I know one of the most important things as they were building out this product is they wanted it to be this kind of like open ecosystem where people could build on top of like the base Cheeze Wizards assets, the game logic, all this stuff, and tie it into their own games, like build their own cool, interesting, even like totally independent from Cheeze Wizards kind of stuff. So it's cool to see that you're kind of grabbing that and running with it. It sounds like it'll be really cool.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about it as well.
How long have you been using Plasma, Max?
Oh, like 4 months or something. So I started to like, there was this how was it, a serial hackathon by Gitcoin.
Okay.
And Leap Network was one of the sponsors for it. So you would needed to make some DApp using their like network. And I already had the game that was built on top of Bitcoin, but it was like I was storing private keys on server side, and I didn't really like that model because it wasn't really like safe. And somewhere at that point, I was also introduced to like Ethereum and stuff that players always have their own fields inside of the wallet, and if they want like to interact with your DApp, they just like make a transaction. They make some change inside of the game, maybe they get something back, right? But their private keys and their asset, like they always own it. So you don't need to store it like anywhere outside. So I really like that idea, and I thought, okay, maybe I can just port my game from Bitcoin to Ethereum, and like again, like using the Leap network, and actually like get some money out of it as well.
Yeah, sure.
So like I won in that category, and the guys was like super helpful, and
Congrats.
I was able, yeah, thank you. So I was also able to like work closely with them. They were like helping to like shape my game. They were like always answering questions and stuff. So like I think like now I actually have like a what do you call it, like biased view of like Ethereum and contracts. So I like Plasma, and I don't know like how I'm gonna like move back to like normal smart contracts now.
No, that's fair enough. Has Plasma generally been pretty nice to work with, or are there some kind of like struggles in development that you run into?
No, like it was like pain in the ass, and especially the model itself is this. Basically, you don't have a state inside of like their Ethereum EVM.
Yeah.
So in order to implement the state, they have their own version of ERC-721 token that have like additional data field, which is byte 32, and that's actually where you can store your data.
Got it.
So if you would like to, I don't know, like store something. So for example, what I'm using is I'm minting a new token for every item you have inside of your inventory. So for example, be it a sword or be it a shield. So each one of them is just like separate token with like some specific data inside of it. So, and if I want to change, for example, like the hero goes inside of the bottle, and maybe you want to change the durability of the item based on like how the battle goes, right? So like classic Diablo model, right? You like hit more monster, your sword will eventually break.
Sure.
So you can change this data on the token itself. So the state never lives on the like virtual machine, right?
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that process was like really tricky. There is like almost no documentation on it. I was trying to dig it down. I was like bugging the guys, like, okay, how should I do it? And they're like, yeah, just like pick this part from the test. And I was like, okay, so I'm picking it up, and then you would just like miss something. So for example, you would need to replace some parts of your smart contract before you will deploy it.
Yeah.
And for example, then you miss the part where you don't really need to remove 0x prefix from some address, and you actually like need it like full, and then it would break, and the only thing it will get you back saying like, yeah, dude, there is this object error. We don't really know like what happened, like why did it break, and then you just like trying to how do you call it? There is this saying about like how 3 blind people are touching an elephant from different sides, right? And they're describing, it's like it's a pillar, it's something like a snake. So it was like kind of similar process. So you're just like touching things in the dark, and like sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But when they do, it's really awesome. It's like really empowering. You have like 3 to 5 seconds, yes, of confirmation of your transaction. So it's like super fast. It's like really cool.
That's really nice.
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem was that like the lack of documentation, and
yeah, that alone can be really frustrating sometimes.
yeah.
That's cool though that when it works well. That's good to hear. You know, I've heard a lot of promise about Plasma, but not too many people have actually used it. So thanks for sharing. That's really cool.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Since we're down to less than 10 minutes, I want to make sure. I know people have been pretty quiet, but I want to make sure that we have one last call at least for questions, comments. About anything related to Ethereum development, infrastructure, Cheeze Wizards API, ETH RPC. Developer tools in the blockchain world, anything and everything is fair game. Just want to make sure everybody has a chance to get the questions they came with answered.
Can I have a question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm not really like bragging. It's just like I feel this. There is this form on Alchemy, that if you want to be put in the whitelist. And so I did it, and then I got a message from like one of the guys saying that I actually will get the spot like in front of the whitelist.
Nice.
So I was just wondering like what's the next step.
Yeah, I can let me give you my email like I gave to Mark. Typically we have that long wait list, but we'll make sure we get you taken care of.
Thank you.
Would you guys be interested in talking, or like, do you think you guys have good feedback for like the next, the people who are building the next Ethereum 2.0 client in terms of like how they can format the APIs better, what things would make your lives easier? Would you guys like be interested in talking to an ETH 2.0 client?
For sure, yeah. I think that's super important. We've connected in the past with Prismatic Labs, who's doing some of the ETH 2.0 stuff. Talked to them very briefly about kind of what they were thinking about, like particularly the migration path from ETH 1.0 to ETH 2.0. But yeah, I think we've learned a lot of hard lessons in the last like year and a half, 2 years of blockchain development, and then specifically the infrastructure side. Would be super happy to talk to people who are building out ETH 2.0. Are you connected with some teams that are building out a client or designing APIs for that stuff?
Yeah, the Sigma Prime team, who's also associated with this Cheeze Wizards Hackathon. They're in Sydney as well. I'm in Sydney.
Nice. That's cool.
And yeah, we're just kind of brainstorming things. And I think like just having a closer connection to the client and someone who's actually building out APIs would be like super helpful moving forward, especially for the whole Ethereum movement.
Yeah, that sounds like a massive win. Something comes to mind is for a long time we've been talking about, it feels like there are these major stakeholders who are each playing a really big role in quality of life for developers building on Ethereum. Like, Web3 is a big part of it. Ethers is a big part of it. Like Parity, Geth, the Ethereum Foundation, obviously. People like Sigma Prime and Prismatic who are building on ETH 2.0. It's pretty rare that like all of those people get in a room and actually talk about what would be best for Ethereum developers, like in kind of like a coordinated way. Like I think everybody has their own good intentions and their own views for the future, but anything we can do to like share information about lessons learned, plan for the future, like make a developer experience significantly better. That we're all ears and super game to talk to people about that.
Yeah, awesome. I think it would be a really good, people need to just smush people's heads together in this space, because it is a holistic experience, and if you can make it as best as possible, like it's about the base layer as much as it is about the middleware and the APIs as much as it is about the front end.
Yeah.
With Libra coming, it's gonna be a battle. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You guys have any like example code for the Cheeze Wizards? Like, have you built anything that is open source that you can point us to for like the running a tournament or anything like that with Alchemy?
So we have the things that are on our documentation. So far, so kind of where we're at is obviously wizards have been released on chain. Like there's plenty to see with like the actual wizards and their power, affinity, that kind of stuff. Cheeze Wizards is basically for the hackathon working on getting real tournament data, dual data, that kind of thing on Rinkeby for people to play with and like build some more complicated apps on top of. So I think there are things like basically some semblance of what those queries will look like on our documentation as well. But yeah, I think as far as like full working code samples and stuff like that, it's going to have to wait until they've actually released those events on Rinkeby at least, so you can build on top of them. Yeah, I think like what kind of stuff were you imagining actually, Max? Because this would be helpful for us. We basically have just like examples of usage of the queries. Would it be helpful to see kind of like any longer form code samples? And if so, like what kinds of things would you be interested in seeing?
Sorry, you said Max.
Sorry, man.
That's fine. Yeah, so for me it'd be listing out for events for the duels, or like maybe creating a Cheeze Wizard, also starting a game. What's another thing? Starting a duel, sorry. And just kind of like things to read through based on like how you get a game started, just so that like while I'm reading through these smart contracts, there's some also reference API stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't dug into all of the game code yet. That's what I'm doing this weekend.
Cool.
But it'd be nice to have like a reference on both ends. Yeah,
for sure. So we'll definitely continue to build out the documentation for the API. If we have a spare moment, things are a little bit crazy over here to put up some example code or something a little bit more robust, would be totally happy to do that.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, last call for questions, guys. We're nearing the end of this thing, but want to make sure we take care of all of you. Cool. Yeah, one last plug for the Telegram group. Totally happy in an ongoing way to kind of help sure that people are making the most out of the Cheeze Wizards API, answer your questions, talk through what you're building. We're engineers ourselves, so we're super happy to talk about these kind of things. Link is in the chat. Click that. It's also linked to from the documentation, so you can join us from there. Good luck with the hackathon, everybody. And we're super looking forward to seeing what people build with Cheeze Wizards, build with our API. Really, really excited to see what comes out of this.
Hey, Mike, thank you so much to you and the whole Alchemy team. Where can people find out more about everything Alchemy and stay engaged with you throughout the hackathon? Is the Telegram channel the best place for that?
So Telegram channel, you can get real-time chat with us. If you have questions or that kind of thing, definitely the best place. Information on us, just link to our website. Oops, that was to Mark, not to all chat. AlchemyAPI.io is us and kind of like our normal infrastructure business. You can find out more about us there. And then the Telegram chat, I think specifically for Cheeze Wizards stuff, is definitely the best place to reach us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Awesome. Thank you too for the workshop. And everybody have a good day.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.